So
Crazy, yeah.
we're finally at the fourth loves. Remember, we've had 4 different loves. This is love's reward this week. We finally reached love's reward. Isn't that sweet?
Oh.
Aww.
It's not sweet because I don't want it to end.
Aww.
This is a
The
very-
next study's gonna be good.
Well, I'm not saying it
I'm
would be
hoping.
good, but I've learned more about Ruth than I never knew.
Yes, I really didn't know. I've read this book of Ruth many times. I really didn't know the depth that you put into it. I'm
Exactly.
thinking, where'd you get all that?
We got more today.
I know, I'm glad. That's why it's so
Oh, you want to
interesting.
teach too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's a 3-hour lesson tonight. I hope you can all hang on.
You bring us,
You know, because it's the concluding lesson. Okay, so when we last left off, this week, will Boaz and Ruth find happiness? Will Boaz be able to redeem the unexpected turn of events? Will Boaz have an ace up his sleeves? And it will be an ace of hearts if you notice. Let's find out.
You had some fun when you got together, didn't you?
Happy the Oscars were last night.
Oh,
and I don't think you got it.
I didn't get nominated.
For next year.
Oh yeah, this is for next year.
And it was
That's right.
so much of the storyline had changed that I don't know. So it's the last time, yeah.
Okay, so let's start where we left off in Ruth 5. So where we left off was Mr. So-and-so said he would redeem the land, right?
Yes.
And so Boaz was like, hey, what? There goes my chances with Ruth.
And then you gave him the rest of the story.
Yeah, now here's the rest of the story. So verse 5 it says, Then Boaz said, On the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you must also buy it from Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to perpetuate the name of the dead through his inheritance. So basically, Elimelech died first, and technically the land passed to Mahalan, if that's how you say it, Ruth's husband's. It became his property, technically. But yet Naomi's the one that sold it.
Oh,
Because Ruth would have received it because she was married to Mahalan, and so that's why she comes with the property now, because it really was her property in that one sense because she was the wife. So he says, well, it comes with Ruth.
She's part of the property.
She's part of the property. She's part of the deal. So he did have that ace up his sleeve, you know, to try to detour Mr. So-and-so. So the land must be redeemed in order to provide an inheritance to its heir. That's why we have to redeem it. So he had this little hidden clause he could use was Ruth. Ruth goes with the land. And as we learned last week, property must continue on in the family, and the family line must continue on with the property. It's kind of like goes hand in hand. You got to have the heir and you got to have the property. It's got to keep going. And it's got to stay within the tribe is the biggest goal. You try to keep it in the family line. If the family line does fail, there are no heirs, then it'll pass to the next closest member in the family. So, and then it might even move out beyond that where it moves just into the tribe. Huh?
Until the year of Jubilee.
And Jubilee, and it can come back if there's a family member that can claim it. But if there's no family members, it stays within the tribe. So if Elimelech is part of the, oh, now I'm going to forget what tribe they were part of. Well, whatever tribe he's a part of, it has to stay inside that tribe. But
he must have been Judah.
because it's Bethlehem.
Line of Judah.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's Judah. Thank you. Oh, see, told you. Would I remember anything? Yeah, who knows?
The rule you were talking about where the property goes to, I was just reading last week or so about the daughters of, I think it was in the Manasseh tribe, that the daughters, they had no heirs.
No.
Right.
There are no sons. So
Right.
what are you gonna do? You're gonna take our land? It belongs to my dad. So
Right.
So they solved it by God said, okay, if you marry out of the tribe, the land still stays in the tribe.
Gets to stay with the
Never
girls.
gets to go to,
Right.
but first of all, marry with a tribe. That's
Right.
what God wanted.
Right.
Marry your cousin.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen, you don't get them.
Yeah, right. They couldn't
You don't
take
get the
it.
prize.
Hi, Connie. Connie's watching us while in the room. I'm in there too, though. If you look at, you'll find I'm in there too. We're just all experimenting tonight.
And it's gonna start echoing.
Yeah, make sure your volume's down, cause. So let's read what Mr. So-and-so answered. Ruth 4:6. And the close relative said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I ruin my own inheritance. You redeem my right of redemption for yourself, for I cannot redeem it. So either he won't or he can't, for some reason, redeem the land. Now, it may be that he hasn't had a son yet, and if he has a son with her first and never has a son, then guess who's going to get the property? Her son, not his. It could pass the wrong way. So he's either worried about that, or he just doesn't want to get involved. You know, not sure what his real reasoning is. He's concerned. So the closer relative had not yet had a son, is what it would appear, or his own, who could gosh, I can't even talk. The closer relative had not yet had a son, or his own, who could this is where I forgot to go fix my typo. There you go. Of his own, I forgot to go back to the PowerPoint. Of his own, who could receive his property as an inheritance. Yeah, that whole F thing there makes a big difference.
It makes sense.
Makes much more sense. So,
And here you added the families.
yeah, see, I thought I had corrected. I wonder if I didn't load. I thought I loaded the new PowerPoint. Anyway, because I went in to make corrections on the PowerPoint. So, if the closer relative married Ruth, his property and Elimelech's property would pass to Elimelech's family line if no other sons were born to Mr. So-and-so or no other kids.
That doesn't make any sense to me, but that's okay.
It's their rules.
Chris says I'm here too.
Hi, Chris.
She wanted me to say hi, Chris.
Tell her hi.
So I wanted to just take a bigger look at the bigger picture of Ruth at this point so that you can understand Mr. So-and-so and who he is really in this story as far as our typologies go. So the typologies found in Ruth, Elimelech and Naomi represented the Jews. We've talked about a little bit about this before. Ruth represented the Gentiles because she was a Gentile. Boaz represented Jesus. Boaz and Jesus are the Kinsman-Redeemer. Mr. So-and-so, here's your new one for tonight, represents the law. And Boaz represents grace. And this will help put the picture a little better together for you, because this whole story, besides being a love story and a story about people caring and helping one another, it's God's story. It's a picture of what He's doing. So what Mr. So-and-so, or the law, could not do, Boaz, grace, could do, and that was to provide redemption. Do you get it? See, he was busy thinking about, what was best for him, getting his needs met, but it didn't meet everybody else's needs, right? The law can't meet the need.
It just shows you all the way things that are wrong.
That's right.
Teacher, is there a reason you capitalize
The law,
the law or Kinsman-Redeemer, or is it? You
emphasis.
just wanted to? Okay. In the Bible, does it say Kinsman-Redeemer?
I don't know if it's put, because the original is Goel.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
I don't know if it's actually termed that way or not. I have to go back to Leviticus again and look.
No, I was just in there. Don't go there.
Because I never think
You don't want to go there. But no, it's not.
You made it out of the
So,
law, you don't have to
I
back
think-
into it, right?
I think this is such a cool picture that this whole story put together. You look at it just as the people, but the people all represent a piece of God's story, and he's teaching us, he's foreshadowing and telling us what it needs to happen, is that he gave the Jews the law, but there was no way the law could meet the need. There's no way the law could redeem them. They needed someone still to redeem them. They needed a Kinsman-Redeemer, which is Jesus. They needed grace. Law can't save you, only grace can, and that's Jesus and what he did for us. So let's read on a little further. Ruth 4.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So the same situation that can happen with Mr. So-and-so about passing to Elimelech's family everything can happen to Boaz, but he won't care. That's the grace.
Yes. Because Boaz, he's not getting his inheritance is now going to
Because
pass.
it's the same for him.
Yes, but he's making the choice out of grace and love to sacrifice it all for Ruth. That's really it's why it's such a great love story. It's such a great.
Okay, now I don't understand.
Okay, now think. Okay, I think I was probably going to say this later. What does Jesus do for us? He sacrificed it all for us, and what do we partake and share in? His inheritance. He's giving up his inheritance to share with us. We're all heirs with him, co-heirs with him. So he sacrificed. So Boaz, if he should have no other sons, his family property would all pass to Ruth's family, Naomi's family.
The son.
So the
The
very
son.
same thing as Mr. So-and-so.
Okay,
Yeah.
but his original property, if he had a son, would go to his
Right.
son, right?
Right, but we don't know about any of them.
And Boaz had Obed, Ruth had Obed,
Hmm.
so Obed got Boaz's property?
If there were
And
no other
that's the
kids.
only one that we know that's been included.
Right.
Why doesn't he also get, why doesn't Boaz also get his father's property? You didn't have to choose.
You mean
You could have both,
He could
my
have
line
had
and
both.
her line.
if there's another child that he could pass it to, but is there
That's
another?
what I'm saying.
We don't know if there's another child.
I know, but I'm talking about the law now. The law
Right.
would not prohibit his line from carrying on that property, right?
It has to go to the next inheritor.
Which would be the first kid born to Ruth. Is that what you're
Right.
saying?
Yeah,
So-
unless he has another child.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Another child then could, or, I've not seen this anyplace in the Bible, I'm just wondering how that line would work. The second child could get his family property,
Could get Boaz.
because at this point, Obed gets it all.
Right.
Okay.
Unless there's some other son that can
Right.
take Boaz's family name and property. So it's like the first son's going to really get the last name of, if they had a last name, of Elimelech. It's his family line. And he's receiving his property and he's carrying on the family name and property. So if Boaz had a second son, he could carry on the family line for Boaz's family, because then it could pass on the name, his family's name to him.
That's what I didn't understand about the, Uncle so-and-so. He said he couldn't. And I thought you meant that he couldn't because he already has his own property, and so.
Well, it could be the reason he made the choice. He has his property. He's not going to get to keep Elimelech's property because it's going to go to Ruth and any kids she has. So even if he invested in redeeming the property, he's not going to get to keep the property if Ruth has a kid with him.
Oh.
So he's going to lose his money which is a big motivator for some people. And he's not going to get to keep the land because it's going to pass on to her kids.
Wow.
Now, so
But
that's,
he could still have 2 sets of land, is what I was.
he could if he has another kid.
Right.
But either he's,
No, that's not my question. Even if he doesn't have another kid, his property, okay, Uncle so-and-so already has his land all laid out, whatever tribe he was in, I forget. He must be in the
same
tribe
tribe.
of Judah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and he doesn't need another wife, doesn't need more property.
Mm.
And even if I got Ruth, I still would have my property, but he would also get Ruth's. That was kind of what I'm.
He can't have Ruth's property because it's supposed to stay in their family. He's just helping them by redeeming it. Does that make sense? He's paying for it to come back
So
to.
he would not get any property.
Well, so.
It's not supposed to. He's supposed to be buying it back for them, for their family line.
Might he lose his property, the property he already has before Ruth comes along, to her son? Because now he's the father and then.
He could if he
had.
had-
Son, if it's just one son for him.
If he has no other kids, he could.
Right, so maybe that's where he feels like I have to protect my own inheritance.
Right.
But that's kind of doesn't make sense though at the same time still to me.
And I'm no expert.
I just keep thinking of Downton Abbey.
I know, that's true.
That's the closest thing I can come up with, is that where I'm going to like, where people, lines of people has to go on. You know?
I don't know. I could have it wrong. I mean, I just from what my reading is, it would pass to her, and he's at risk if there's no other kids.
Well, see, this situation is not in the Bible. That's what I'm saying. I was wondering how that would work out if you've got 2,
You always have to have a history, a really deep
we have to
history
have
lesson
pastor,
figure it out.
yeah, go back in paleo or whatever. Chris says Boaz didn't give him much time to make the decision, but yes, Mr. So-and-so could have got it. We know. Just wants to contribute.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so let's read on. Now we're all thoroughly confused. Ruth 4:7-10. Now this was a custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging to confirm anything. One man took off his sandal and gave it to the other, and this was a confirmation in Israel. Therefore the close relative said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself." So he took off his sandal. And Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "You are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's and all that was Chilion's and Mahlon's from the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of Mahlon, I have acquired as my wife to perpetuate the name of the dead through his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brethren and from his position at the gate. You are witnesses this day." So,
See, inheritance has always been confusing,
Yeah.
just so you know.
It's always been an issue.
yes, we've all probably had to deal with inheritance issues,
Get your
yes.
paperwork taken care of.
Yeah, do your paperwork.
The higher up you are, the worse it is.
Yeah.
So Mr. So-and-so took off his sandal, not because he's weird, but because it was custom, and it was a public display of him giving up his rights to the property, that he wouldn't redeem it, he wouldn't take Ruth. So the taking off of the sandal is a custom that arose from the fact that fixed property was taken possession of by treading upon the soil. And I'll give you a couple of verses
What's
that
the
point
inner
to...
thigh one?
Oh, I know, I was thinking of that.
Because that's another custom
I
that
was
did.
reading that the other day.
It's worse.
Jacob and Isaac. Isaac had to put his hand
Uh-huh.
under.
Yeah, but
I-
that
I'll-
meant something different.
I
wonder
read
if
that
it
and I...
was direct, like your son, or like in the family, as opposed to somebody out in the gate. I wonder what the difference.
Yeah,
It was
I...
weird
that
to
may-
me.
I know.
Well, those were more about blessings and promises every time you see that they're like swearing of an oath. This was a business deal. And so this whole treading upon the soil and it's your land, you know, like I can walk over the church property and go, "It's mine, it's mine."
Start chucking
And
your
you take
skin
off your sandal to prove it, right?
Yeah, take off my sandal, it's mine. But you see just a few glimpses of this in Scripture, Genesis 13:17. Arise and walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give it to you. Now this is God talking to the people, and he's promising that where they walk, that's going to be their land. Okay, and then Joshua 1:3, and he's telling Joshua, every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given you, as I said to Moses. So that's his symbol. You go walk, and where you guys walk, that's where you're going to be. That's going to be your property. So that's where that custom came from. So they took off the sandal and symbolism of the foot. You know, that's what you walk with. So Mr. So-and-so, he apparently made the safe, logical business decision that was best for him. You know, he was looking out for his own family or his own inheritance, whatever his deal was. And adding Ruth to the deal was no bargain for him. He didn't want to mess things up with Ruth. He didn't think it would be beneficial for him or his descendants or whatever reason he had. So there's three important things that you need to remember about the Kinsman-Redeemer. He has to be a near of kin. We've talked about that. He has to be able to redeem it. So in other words, he has to have the money, right? The means to do it. And he has to be willing to redeem. And this is where our Mr. So-and-so fell short. He was not willing to redeem it. That's the third point about a Kinsman-Redeemer. He wouldn't do what he needed to do. And sometimes that's what happens to us. Sometimes we have the ability to help others, but we're not willing. And we have to know that we're following God's will, that we're doing what he says. If he's asked us to help someone like, you know, Boaz felt the call to help Ruth and Naomi, you need to be willing to do it when God asks you to do something. So this guy, he wasn't willing. He wasn't able to do it. He wasn't willing to do it. He was able, but not willing. So like the closer relative, we too may be able to help, but are unwilling. And there's some Bible verses about that some of them we've probably read before. Hebrews 13:16. But do not forget to do good and to share, for with such sacrifices God is well pleased. And that was a sacrifice for Boaz, because he is giving up money. He's giving up, you know, possibly marrying somebody that was of the Jewish faith. He chose to marry a Moabite, you know, so he could be giving up all his land for this. Don't know how that all really turned out, because there's not full details, I don't think, in the Bible about that. Proverbs 19:17. He who has pity on the poor lends to the Lord, and he will pay back what he has given. Sometimes we think we're giving up our last penny to help someone, but God is watching, and he'll meet your needs too. He'll help you when you're showing kindness to the poor. And Luke 6:38, give and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be put into your bosom. For with the same measure that you use, it'll be measured back to you. And that one has hit me on many occasions, like, am I being stingy and it's going to come back to me because I'm being stingy? You know, I'm not being generous, and maybe God's just, he knows that I'm not being generous in the way I'm treating others. He's going to have happen to me, you know. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's almost like a eye-opener verse, I guess you might say. Convicting, yeah. It's like I need to think about how I'm responding to other people's needs. Am I being as generous as God would want me to be, or as sacrificial as I'm supposed to be? So Boaz is a reminder to us that sometimes God calls us to do the illogical, risky, scary, costly, and sacrificial things for him and others. Because it may not have been the best financial decision for Boaz, you know, in the end. It may have not been what would have seemed smart to do. But I think he was a man after, you know, that was obeying God's ways and listening to God. I think that's why he did what he did. Romans 12, yes?
I just want to let you know, Christy said that also, and Landon is listening with Amy.
Oh,
Yeah, and he recognizes my voice because he yelled out, "Miss Amy."
oh, how cute.
I know, but she wants to know there's more people.
Now, I can't see everybody that's on, even on
Yeah, I
my,
wonder what that is.
I'm looking on both devices. I can see there's some other people, but I cannot see their names. So maybe they have a privacy setting that's set, so I
Yeah,
can't see who they are.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know somebody's there. So Romans 12:1, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. That's kind of like the bare minimum thing, that your body is a living sacrifice. He expects us to be giving of our lives in whatever means he calls us to, whether it's physical giving of your physical labor or giving of your goods, whatever it is, he wants you to be doing that. That's what he finds acceptable and pleasing. So now Boaz, to do a little bit more of the typology side of it. Now Boaz was Naomi, the Jews, and Ruth, Gentiles, kinsman-redeemer, right? He was the that's kind of not maybe worded the best, but he's the kinsman-redeemer for the Jews and the Gentiles in that picture. Jesus is all the Jews and Gentiles' kinsman-redeemer. There's completeness with Jesus. Jesus came to be the kinsman-redeemer for all the Jews and all the Gentiles.
Hi, Landon. Since you're on break.
We were waiting for that.
Hi, Landon.
You just need to talk to him. Send him a message for me.
Tell Mommy hi for us, Landon. So, now we said what were the three things that the kinsman redeemer had to be?
Near, willing.
Able and willing.
Okay, so Jesus was near of kin. Now you wouldn't think that because he was God, right? But that's exactly why he had to come to earth, to be the near of kin, right? He couldn't fulfill the kinsman redeemer role if he wasn't one of us. So Mark 10:45, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life a ransom for many. And Hebrews 2:17, therefore in all things he had to be made like his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make propitiation for the sins of the people. So he had to be made like us, or he could not have been our kinsman redeemer. So Jesus was able to redeem, just like Boaz. Hebrews 7:24-25. But he, because he continues forever, has an unchangeable priesthood. Therefore he is also able to save to the uttermost those who come to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. So he's able. And Jesus was willing to redeem. So Romans 3:24, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Jesus Christ. So he was willing to be that. And inasmuch then as the children have partaken of flesh and blood, he himself likewise shared in the same, that through death he might destroy him who had the power of death, that is the devil, and release those who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. So he was willing to redeem. Now it's the one thing you always see him he'd always say, not my will, but yours, Father. He was willing to do whatever the Father wanted to do, and that was another verse I was going to put up there. So because of him being our great kinsman redeemer and what he accomplished for us, there was a great worship service that took place in heaven, and we see that in Revelation 5, and they're literally celebrating him being the kinsman redeemer, basically, and I'll show you how. Revelation 5:1-4. We're not going to read all of 5, but some key verses out of it. And I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll written inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. Then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals?" And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look at it. So I wept much because no one was found worthy to open and read the scroll or to look upon it. Basically, the scroll is like a deed. It's a sealed deed to land, to the earth. And so John's up there, he's looking at the scene unfold, and basically God the Father is holding the scroll. No one is able, they're looking all over. It's interesting, you look in heaven, look on earth, and look below. They're looking for somebody to open the scroll, someone to take claim to the deed of the land, to the earth. Somebody has to redeem it. Somebody has to be powerful enough to redeem it. And they weren't finding it. So John's getting all upset at this point because he's seeing this pre-picture that there's nobody. And he's getting upset because he understands what this means. So someone was sought to redeem the earth or the land. So the Kinsman-Redeemer redeems what? He can redeem the land. And all who were in it. That's the Levirate marriage. I think I made a typo there. In heaven and on earth and under the earth, and no one appeared to be able. So you're kind of like in another suspense. I should add more suspenseful music right here because this is big suspense in the story because John's like, oh no, what's going to happen? So why did the earth or the land need to be redeemed as well as mankind? See, we always thinking about the redeeming of mankind when we think about the Jesus story, right? But he didn't come just to be the kinsman redeemer for us, but he came to fulfill the land that was needing to be redeemed, which is the earth. Why did that need to be redeemed? Do you have any recollections in all your Bible stories of old? Okay.
It was cursed.
There you go. The earth was cursed
Fall.
on the fall. Exactly. And it says, creation itself will be delivered.
Dawn and I just had that story last Sunday. We didn't get it.
Yeah, so, and we'll read it in this verse, but creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption. So not only did mankind fall and become corrupted, but the earth fell and was corrupted because of the sin.
So is that like when God told Adam, you'll have to toil to make your living?
Right, the earth
Or is
is
it going to give up anything for you without a lot of hard work?
you got a lot of hard work ahead of you, exactly.
And
Yes.
there's a verse that nature is like begging to be
Here you go.
To be free, yeah,
Yeah,
overturned, or, yeah.
yeah, Debbie.
I have a squirrel question,
Okay.
because I was just talking to my Sunday school class this week. It came up again from me.
Uh-huh.
The serpent came and tempted Eve. You know, if you just eat the fruit,
Right.
well, no, you said it, don't worry about it. But his curse was, he will crawl on the ground and eat dust the rest of his life. So did the serpent start out upright?
Well, the theory is he had legs, something. Yeah. That's
the picture
I-
I've always had in my
there's no
head.
way to really know for sure since we weren't there, but that's what the picture is that he was upright.
He was
Yeah,
shaking.
walking. He's walking, because she's talking right to her.
I pictured him as a lizard or something with feet.
Well, they still.
But lizards
fall on the
still
ground and
exist.
They're eating dust. So that's why I'm thinking it must be a complete change from what.
Wow.
Something different, yeah,
Well,
it's,
very beautiful because.
That's what I told my
Satan
Sunday
was the
school.
most beautiful angel.
He was the angel of light.
And the angel of
And
music.
so he had to be somehow disguised to be able to come
Right.
to earth. But I wonder how he was
He
disguised.
had to
Yeah.
not have been super scary. Right?
No.
It was-
Oh, no.
I was
She-
probably
It was a
imagining
motivating
that
thing.
it
Well-
would be healing.
chasing your squirrel, all the animals back then were tame.
Yes.
Yes.
So no matter what it was, they got along with all of them because they were walking in the garden with them.
But it had
So,
to be a different animal.
right. Different than what it looks like now.
Different from
Yeah.
all of the animals, because they
Right.
already named all the animals.
Right.
She would have said, well, what is this fox doing here? Or whatever.
Right.
So ask Terry what he thinks.
Well, he did that one video on Ask the Pastor. Do you remember watching that years ago?
I remember watching them, but I don't remember that one.
Yeah, he did one specifically because of that question.
Oh, probably Christy
I don't
asked it,
remember.
huh?
I can't remember who asked it, but he did a whole little video on that.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, drag the video.
I'll
and
put the link in.
to me.
I'll put the link out, and you guys can rewatch the exciting Ask the Pastor episode.
Yes, I would love to be reminded.
Anyway, so yes, here's the verse that Damaris was talking about, I believe. Romans 8:19-21. For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly awaits for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. Because the creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. So it was, then there's another one. There's probably that other verse that you're thinking of too.
That's the one that I was thinking.
Is it this one? But I think there's one more. And but it points back to the garden. The land needed to be redeemed too. So the Kinsman-Redeemer had to be capable of getting the land and mankind, all of mankind. So let's read the conclusion to the So Revelation 5:5-7. But one of the elders said to me, do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals. And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 living creatures, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb, as though it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, went out into all the earth. Then he came and took the scroll out of the right hand of him who sat at the throne. So he was only one, the Lamb, Jesus, that could take it and redeem the land because of what he did. So, Jesus, our kinsman-redeemer, willingly sacrificed himself. Yes, surprise. I said it was a 3-hour lesson. It was just too much. It wasn't enough to put in 2 lessons. So anyway, I thought I'd just put it all in one.
You just know you're excited about it.
So Jesus, our kinsman-redeemer, willingly sacrificed himself as a lamb at his first coming, and is mentioned in these verses. And then he came back as a victorious lion at his second coming. That's also mentioned in this verse. So that's why you see the pictures of him as a lamb and as a lion, because the lamb is the first coming when he died on the cross, and the lion is his second coming. So that's why you see it pictured that way. And he was the only one able to redeem us and the land. So he took care of both. Just like Boaz took care of Ruth's land and took care of redeeming her and Naomi. So Jesus was victorious, and they are celebrating in heaven. Revelation 5:9, and they sang a new song, saying, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood, out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation. Good news, huh? Praise Jesus for his sacrifice and his redemption. So now, let's go read the conclusion of Ruth and Boaz. And all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman who is coming to your house like Rachel and Leah, the 2 who built the house of Israel. And may you prosper in Ephrathah and be infamous. Hopefully not infamous, but maybe famous. In Bethlehem. May your house be like the house of Perez, who Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring which the Lord will give you from this young woman. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And when he went into her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. No honeymoon. Then the woman said to Naomi, blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a close relative, and may his name be famous in Israel. And may he be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age for your daughter-in-law, who loves you, who is better to you than 7 sons has borne him. Amen. Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her bosom and became a nurse to him. Okay, she's older and she's nursing.
Yeah.
Totally different culture, huh? Also, the neighbor woman gave him a name, saying, there is a son born to Naomi. And they called his name Obed, and he is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now this is the genealogy of Perez. Perez begot Hezron, Hezron begot Ram, and Ram begot Amminadab. Amminadab begot Flintstone. Oh, no, wait.
We're reading with you.
Begot Nahshon, and Nahshon begot Salmon. Salmon begot Boaz, and Boaz begot Obed. Obed begot Jesse, and Jesse begot David. So the people gave Naomi a blessing, and their blessing came to pass, and her descendant would be a king. I mean, how cool is that? To go from poverty, widow, basically nothing in society.
And a four.
And well, Ruth, she's the foreigner, but like even Naomi, because they gave this blessing to Naomi about her, having a baby and everything. And so both of them were blessed beyond measure, both Ruth and Naomi, through this whole event. They end up being grandparents to a king. I mean, how wonderful. And then they're now in the Messianic line. They're now going to be the forerunners to Jesus. They're Kinsman-Redeemer, Isn't that cool? So, I'm going to I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit, but anyway. What was interesting too about this, they also, when they blessed Boaz, they put part of the blessing in reference to his ancestors, to Judah and Tamar, who were also a Levirate marriage. And so they took the blessing, which is just so funny because their minds, I don't know if they were thinking deliberately that way or God just worked that out, but to pick a blessing that tied right back to another Levirate marriage, in honor of their Levirate marriage. So Boaz is a result of a Levirate marriage through Judah and Tamar, and his mother was from the harlot Rahab from Jericho, who married his father Salmon. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. Okay. And you read about her in the genealogy. She got accepted into the Messianic line as well, which is pretty cool.
It gives all of us hope.
It does, because you see 2-3 people here who really didn't have hope, whose lives were not the greatest. I mean, Ruth's a Gentile from a not welcomed group of people, and Rahab was not a welcomed group of people either, and she was a harlot on top of it. And here, both those women have been included in the Messianic line, and all because Boaz. This all started with Boaz doing what was right. He was able and willing to redeem Naomi and Ruth and the property. I mean, what a guy! He changed these women's lives for the better, and it all came down to providing for the Messianic line because he did what was right. So he got the blessing too. I mean, to be the forerunner to King David. He's grandpa to King David. How cool is that? So that's pretty neat. So what it's a reminder of, like, who was it? Lori said gave us hope. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our past is not what is important. It is our future with our groom, the Kinsman-Redeemer. It didn't matter that Rahab was a harlot. It didn't matter that Ruth was a Moabitess. What matters is what they did from there on out after meeting their Kinsman-Redeemer. Same with us. It matters what we do with what our relationship with him is now. Where we go from here. And there should be growth. So once we meet Jesus, there should be progression in our lives, growth, change. And we saw that with Ruth. And look at the changes for her. She started out a foreigner. Then she was considered beneath a servant. Then she became a maidservant, somebody available and ready for marriage. And then she became a wife. And then she became a mom, which isn't even unless her life progressed for the better once she met Boaz. It got better and better. So that's the way it should be for us when we meet our Kinsman-Redeemer. Our life should get better. So now we know that both Boaz and Ruth made it to happiness. They've already had a baby, right? So all the suspense is over, and we saw that Ruth and Naomi both received love's reward, didn't they? And I would say Boaz did too. It's a blessing to God when we come to him, right? And become one of his children. And it's a blessing to Boaz that he now had a loving wife. I mean, she's obviously was a good catch, I would say. You know, he did well for himself, and what a reward it was for him too. I mean, how pleased is Jesus with us when we love him and honor him and do our best for him. I mean, it's a blessing for him. It's a reward for him too. So, and I already said this because I jumped ahead. I was talking about the women. Got so excited. So praise Jesus, our Kinsman-Redeemer, who redeemed us, changes us, and blesses us.
Redeemed, then changed.
I probably should be, is it, he redeemed, yeah, because it's past tense, redeemed us, and he changes us, and he blesses us. So I love the story of Ruth. It's a good story. It's a good reminder.
I love it more now that
Yes.
you dug all that out for us.
Oh, thank you.
You are incredible teachers.
So next time we start our new Strong and Victorious study, and we're going to be focusing mostly on, mostly like Joshua chapters 1 through 11 with some skimming of the last chapters, but the big chunk's going to come from the first half of the book. And then it's going to show how it ties to Ephesians, Hebrews, and Revelation. And it's going to be interesting studies because it's going to teach us how to be strong and victorious in our Christian life. And Ephesians and Hebrews, they're sort of the doctrine that we are supposed to live by, whereas Joshua is the practical application of the doctrine, if that makes sense. So we're going to see how that all ties together. I think it's going to be a real good study. I think we'll enjoy it. And believe it or not, for the third time in a row, we're going to see another typology of Jesus in Joshua.
That doesn't look like Jesus at all.
No, that's just us. That's the way we want to look.
Oh, okay.
Rosie, we want to look like Rosie the Riveter. Strong and victorious. She was strong and victorious for the wartime effort. So, okay?